After spending 9 years in investment banking, I decided to leave my job last year to pursue entrepreneurship full-time. Do I regret it? Has it been worth it? Will I go back into banking? People love these days to dismiss the idea of working for someone else without having done it themselves. Instead, I wanted to give you a balanced view, a very honest view on the things you should consider and the things that I wish someone else had warned me of before I made the decision to quit. Number one, you're trading the 9 to 5 for the 24/7. You would have heard the saying, do a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. While on the surface, this sounds believable and it sounds like a dream, the reality is very different. And the idea of never working a day in your life just does not exist when the thing that you love becomes your primary income stream. The things you enjoy stop being as enjoyable when you include money into the mix. When I was working full-time and doing my creative stuff on the side, I loved the creative stuff. I didn't have any pressure to make money from it. So the boring stuff that came with making money, so working with sponsors, chasing invoices, bookkeeping, none of that existed. But when I left my full-time job, all of the other things that come with monetizing your passion made the creative stuff less enjoyable. I still love it 100 times more than what I used to do, but don't go into business or becoming an entrepreneur thinking that it won't feel like work because you love it. There will always be parts of what you do that you don't enjoy. And when it's your own thing and you're starting out and your income is tied to what you're doing and how much you're doing, your work-life balance also goes out the window. Evenings are no longer a thing. Weekends are no longer a thing. You'd rather miss that dinner out with some friends just to buy back some time to get that project that you're working on off the ground. Whereas when you're working for someone else, you know that you are going to get paid rain or shine. If I left work at 5 p.m. and didn't log in for the rest of the day, if I took 2 months of annual leave that month, I was still going to make money. Number two, no one tells you what to do. This can be a good thing and a bad thing. As an employee, I knew what to expect. I knew what project I was going to be working on. I knew what I had to do. I had someone giving me feedback on whether I'm doing well or how I need to improve. Or if I didn't know how to do something, there's a 99% chance that someone else in the organization knew how to do it. And I could just call them up and figure it out. I had someone give me instructions on how to operate in the working world. Some people love that. It's one less thing to think about, but you're not going to get that as an entrepreneur. And in business, very often, the only way to find an answer is to live through it. For me, that is so much more exciting. Yes, I can read some books. Yes, I can give someone a call and get some advice, but I only really know if something's going to work if I do it myself. And that forces you to try different things and continuously challenge yourself. The personal growth for me in the last year of working for myself has been far greater than it was in the 9 years prior of having someone else tell me what to do and how to do it. Number three, the fear of competition. The structure for employees is for them to go to work for a certain number of hours and get paid for those hours. The fear comes from when you may no longer be needed anymore, or someone else enters your sphere with better experience or better skills, or someone who is cheaper to employ comes in to do what you're doing and you lose your job as a result of that. And I've seen that happen to so many people. You really feel it, or at least I did when I was in the workplace. Because of this, you find that people you're working with don't want to share all their information. They don't want to teach you everything they know because they want to protect their own position. And I totally see that side. But when you're in business, it's the complete opposite. You speak to another entrepreneur and they know the grind and the hustle that you're going through, and you'll sit there for hours telling each other everything you know. There is no such thing as direct competition, or if you're doing it, then they can't. One person doing well isn't going to put the next person out, and you can all learn from each other. For me, this has been a really big shift, and it's really surprising to see how openly the entrepreneurs and the creators I've come across speak and share their numbers or how much they've made on a certain thing versus how secretive people were when they're working for a company. Which leads me to my next point, money. This one is huge, and it can completely dictate your view on whether you think working for yourself is better or working for someone else is better. To give you an idea, over the 9 years that I worked in banking, I got a 5 to 10% raise on most years, 0 in 1 year, and then a 30% or around 30% when I switched companies. I have a video over here on what my salary was like year on year for the last 9 years in banking, and you can see the full breakdown and where the biggest pay increases came from. The good thing about working for someone else is that there is a floor. I'm not going to get paid less than my base salary that year. The bad thing is that there is a cap. I can't make more than a certain amount. Even if I had a really good year, it didn't mean I was going to make more money. I can't suddenly make triple what I did the year before just because I added so much value and brought in a lot of revenue. It just doesn't work like that for most jobs. Whereas as an entrepreneur, there is no cap. Zero restrictions. What you make is a direct correlation between the value you provide and the money you make. If you get it right, you can go from 0 to 100 in a year. Again, speaking from experience, I made more after 1 year as an entrepreneur than I was making after 9 years in banking. But that number as an entrepreneur can go down to 0 just as easily as it went up to 100. So there is pressure to constantly be on your A game. But for me, there is nothing better than being in full control and ownership in how much I'm going to make and not have someone come to me at the end of the year and tell me, oh, the economy isn't doing well or the budgets have tightened and so we can't pay you as much. None of that is all within my control. Then value and ownership. My job was to provide financing for corporates and governments for projects that created jobs and supported the economy. I can make that sound as fancy as I want and make it sound like I'm contributing to people's lives, but there was absolutely nothing unique that I was doing or contributing that someone else couldn't have done. And when I left, someone else did step into my job and do what I did almost instantly. I did a handover. They had similar skills. They took over. They got the job done. Now, the way I contribute to people's lives is through what I've created. Yes, it's the knowledge and the skills that I've learned from others and the experience that I've gained through banking, but it's also an extension of me and my view and my perspective on things. If I don't do it, no one else can step in and take over. They have their own version, sure, but the satisfaction of creating something unique, something that can't be replicated because you've infused your perspective and your personality with it, that's huge. I feel like by doing this, I'm tapping into my core strengths and my skills and what I was meant to do, which isn't something that I had the opportunity to do in banking when I was working for someone else. I do believe that everyone has something like that. There are 8 billion people in the world and none of us share the exact same DNA. There is something that makes you authentically you, and there's something that you can do that no one else can compete with. And that gave me a sense of ownership and fulfillment that I knew no other job could give me. Then freedom and control. This for me is the one thing that I will never be able to give up now that I've had a taste of it. I have the freedom and the full control of how I work, what I work on, where I work from, how efficient I am, how hard I work for, how long I work for. Again, good and bad, but the good and something that I could have only dreamt of doing before is that I can take my laptop and go to Bali for a month and work from there. I can hop on a Zoom call wearing a t-shirt or a jumper and still be respected. And that probably sounds so irrelevant and minor, but when you've lived a certain institutionalized way for 9 years, you really appreciate these things. And community. This is a huge one that I really do miss. I used to work with hundreds of people. I'll be speaking to 10, 20 people a day. We'd be working on things together, would get lunch together. I'd meet people from different backgrounds who I would never hang out with outside of work, but we would have great conversations when we were in work. And that is something that does not exist in the early stages of being an entrepreneur. You don't have that community feel day in and day out, but you do have a full say on who you work with. You don't need to work with Karen from finance if you don't like her. You don't need to have to hear from John in legal because you don't agree on things. You can choose to work with who you want to. And if it's not working, you can work with someone else. So again, there are positives and negatives in it, but I do enjoy not having to go into work with a fake smile because there's a 360 feedback or a performance review coming up. I could just be myself. All in all, on a whole, I have not looked back. There are times or things that I miss having when I worked for someone else. But after I weigh up the pros and cons, it's just a no-brainer that I'm so much more happy and fulfilled doing what I'm doing now. But that's my story. Someone else can tell you that they have had the worst experience working for themselves and they would way rather live in a comfortable life as an employee. Either way, I wanted to give you a balanced view from someone who has worked for someone else for 9 years, but also has the experience in working for myself now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, here's the other video I spoke about on how much I made every single year over my 9-year span in banking, and also this video right here on why I quit. Thanks for watching and see you there.